What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of Watching Every Best Picture Winner. This is the series on my channel where I spin a random wheel that has every Best Picture winner that's ever won on it, and I watch it at random. And what's really cool about this series for me is I've watched a lot of the movies that have won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, but I haven't seen them all. And it's been really fun to revisit ones that I've already watched and also to watch some new films that I'd never seen before. And in this series, I always put a wheel on the screen and spin it at the end of the episode to let you guys know what I'm watching, and it's up on the screen right now. And the last episode when we spun, it landed on the film Spotlight. And I had never seen Spotlight. This has a super powerhouse cast, and I knew from the description of the film and when it was discussed around the time of the Academy Awards that it was discussing a really heavy subject matter when it came to child sex abuse in the Catholic Church. And so I'd been interested to watch this movie. And I think right now, especially when it comes to like the prevalence of the resurgence of Epstein and when it comes to child sex abuse in our society, looking at the subject matter of these incredibly powerful people and organizations utilizing their positions of power to commit absolutely horrible, atrocious acts towards children. It's just really terrible. And so knowing a movie that has this really powerful subject matter conveying that, I was really interested to watch it and to see how it would come across. And I'm excited to tell you about it today. And as I say in every single one of these episodes, at the end of the video, I'm going to spin the wheel and pick the next Best Picture winner that I'm going to watch in the following episodes if you want to watch these movies and keep up with me. But right now, we are going to discuss the movie Spotlight. Spotlight is directed by Tom McCarthy, the true story of how the Boston Globe uncovered the massive scandal of child molestation and cover-up within the local Catholic Archdiocese, shaking the entire Catholic Church to its core. So I was super excited to watch this movie. Like I said, really curious to see how this would be executed. Whenever you take a movie and make it about really heavy subject matter, it can either come across as really corny, like if it's trying too hard, or it can be really endearing and thoughtful. And I definitely think this movie hits the latter. This is an incredibly powerful movie that really shook me up a lot. I knew a lot about this situation. I've researched it before. And I think the way the director gets it across, the best way I can describe this movie is it's very cold and methodical, very similar to David Fincher's Zodiac when it comes to like presenting this subject matter in a way that feels very real and raw, authentic, no frills, just kind of fantastic dialogue between really great actors that conveys an incredibly important message that I think is still really, unfortunately, prevalent in our society because these horrendous things keep occurring to children in our country. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit more today when I break the movie down for you. So at the beginning of the movie, we're jumped into the Boston Globe and we're introduced to the department of the Globe that is called Spotlight, that they do these really powerful pieces where they take a really long time to put the information together. And it's led up by Robbie, played by Michael Keaton. You also have Michael, played by Mark Ruffalo. Sasha, played by Rachel McAdams. There's a ton of characters that come into play that make up this department. And they're working on coming up with whatever their next story is going to be. Well, simultaneously, Marty Baron, played by Liev Schreiber, shows up at the Boston Globe, and he's essentially there to kind of analyze how things are going. And I didn't mention early on, this is in 2001, I believe, is when this all starts taking place. And he shows up and he starts questioning the different departments and essentially wants to make sure that the Globe is spending their money in the right place and that the Globe is being the most effective media outlet that it possibly can be. And he essentially approaches Robbie and tells him, hey, there's this scandal that I've been wanting to, pursue and bring to light in the media involving child sex abuse in the Catholic Church. And that through I believe it's the 70s into the 80s, there were multiple cases of kids reporting these claims of abuse to their parents, and that they were going into these meetings with the Catholic Church where they were essentially bringing in lawyers and settling everything quietly, and that the documents had all been privatized from the public eye so that no one can obtain them, and so that they could essentially cover this up so that these priests could continue to keep their jobs. And essentially, like, everybody at the paper says, okay, you can go through with this, but it's going to create an intense legal battle with the Catholic Church. Like, they're not just going to roll over and die when it comes to being called out for these acts. And the entirety of the film is the Spotlight crew researching this and uncovering the initial story, but finding out that it is getting marginally worse, and that the issue is much larger than they could have ever possibly imagined. And the entire film is watching these characters kind of do their thing to discover all of this, while also writing a story that's going to bring this to the public light. So like I said, I thought this movie was fantastic, and there's a multitude of reasons for that. I'm not going to go through each and every actor, but there are a ton of powerhouse performances in this movie. There's a lot of very heavy emotional scenes when it comes to depicting victims of this abuse, recalling their abuse, and then like seeing these people who are trying to write this story because they think that it's important be affected by that situation. Because if you think about it, like, as a journalist, you see the most horrible, awful, terrible things. Whether you're a photographer or you're writing about this, you're constantly exposed to terrible information and horrible things. And so I'm sure you as a person try to harden yourself as much as you can to experience that, but it's human beings going through horrible things, and you can just see through these characters and their experiences how it's personally impacting them. And one of the other things that I really appreciated about this movie was that the director kind of sees how it impacts them at home in certain circumstances that they're going through. Like Rachel McAdams' character, I thought it was really interesting. She's not a religious person, but she was going to the Catholic Church with her grandmother, and like she just can't force herself to do it anymore. And she, doesn't want to bring it up to her grandmother because she's afraid as to how it will impact her and her age. And there's all sorts of interesting ideas that show up in the movie surrounding that. And then, like, because this is located in Boston, there's such a heavy populace of Catholics that live in Boston, even Catholics that work at the paper. It was really interesting to see each and every one of their reactions. And because there's so many amazing actors in this, it really works well. I also really enjoyed the visual style of this movie. It's not the most breathtaking cinematography, but as I said, like, being cold, methodical, and calculated, I think the visuals need to complement that very well. And this movie, like, visually, it really does a nice job of immersing you in Boston in this particular time period, and having like the color and the buildings and just like the people interacting with one another, where the camera is placed, all of these different things kind of coming together to create that environment and mood that the director is going towards. And I really appreciated that a lot. And I also enjoyed the incorporation of music in this. There's a really great score, but there's also some musical cut-ins. One of the most impactful scenes is like Mark Ruffalo walks into a church at one point, and the children are like singing Silent Night in this Catholic church, and he's like watching the people, and it's truly horrific. You're seeing these kids who, like, they don't know any better. They're just going to church with their parents, and it's like, with the scale that they discover, you could be standing right next to a sicko. And I just really thought that scenes like that give you the indication of what the film is trying to explore in a way that doesn't take expositional dialogue. It's just showing you this scene that kind of creates the power dynamic. And there's like a lot of really great shots in this movie. One in particular that I kept thinking about was, I can't remember which characters. I think it was Rachel McAdams' character when she was interviewing this man who had been abused. They were sitting there, and there was like a swing set and like a children's playground, and like juxtaposed with a giant Catholic church right behind it. And there's a lot of great visual symbolism in the movie that kind of gives you exactly the idea of what the director is trying to convey. And like I said, I think movies like this are incredibly important, and I think this was 2015, I believe, was when it was released, which would have been at one in 2016 for the Best Picture. But what I think about this is I grew up in a heavily conservative Christian community. I'm not a Catholic, but one of the things that I did see is hypocrisy. I saw a lot of people in the church who would preach one thing and be incredibly hypocritical. And as someone who does not practice religion, who sees myself as an atheist at this point in my life, I just think the hypocrisy of the church and the way people in the church utilize their position of power. Like I wasn't in the Catholic Church, but being in my father was a Baptist minister. We would see ministers all the time who would have open affairs or that would sleep with people in the church, that would lose their jobs. And it's like you go up there every day and you preach something and you don't even practice what you preach. And I think that's incredibly indicative of the message of the Catholic Church. Here, the Catholic Church presents themselves as this like safe haven, this lifestyle where you can bring your family in and it can become essentially a whole trait of your life. Well, that's really difficult when the men who are in charge of the church are molesting your children. And it's just sick and disgusting and truly vile that these people in these positions of power utilize their positions of power to prey on kids, and to just see how large the scale of it was in just this one particular area was horrifying to think about. And then the lengths that this religious organization that supposedly prides itself on, safety for children and hope and all of these different things that the Catholic Church touts itself upon, willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to protect these men and their own image. It just really goes to show how vile and despicable the Catholic Church is. I have never been a fan of the Catholic Church. I think they are an evil entity that takes advantage of a group of people in the guise of like a safe haven and giving you something to yearn for in the afterlife, when really they just manipulate people for their own best interests. And I feel like that's happened since the creation of the church. And that's not just the Catholic Church, that's just religious organizations as a whole. I feel like the entities themselves are incredibly and inherently evil. When you see these like mega church pastors that like spend their tithes on having private jets and stuff, it's sick. It's a business. That's really, to me, that's all it is. It's a business of bringing in people who are at their worst, that are dealing with something. They're yearning and longing for a safe haven and to feel some kind of comfort, and they manipulate these people. And I saw that in my personal life growing up as a minister's son. I saw the way people were manipulated and treated horribly at the lowest points of their life. And I thought it was really interesting the way that the movie sort of tied in all of those conversations around how a lot of these people that were being preyed upon were members of lower income families that come from the poor parts of Boston. And I just think that that's really indicative of the church as a whole. And as I said, with Epstein coming back into light right now, and the way that the leader of the country is being targeted for his relationship with Epstein and the horrible, vile, terrible acts that that man committed and that the people associated with him committed, but because of his position of power and the ton of money that he has, that so much of it can just be swept under the rug just because you have money. I don't know. I don't think it should be a controversial opinion that sickos that prey on children should be in jail. I don't know why that's a controversial take. I don't know why people speaking out and saying, hey, release these documents from these sickos, like the government and the FBI protecting these vile human beings that committed despicable crimes against other human beings. They should be locked up for their lives. That is my opinion. I think that it's wrong. And I think movies like this that expose entities like the Catholic Church that guise themselves as these morally superior, better than everyone else type of organizations, they should be called out for their crimes. And I think that this movie does a brilliant job of it. It's definitely something I won't forget anytime in the near future. Incredibly impactful piece of filmmaking. And I think that everyone should watch this. It's very, very well done. So have you seen Spotlight? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was excellent. I really thought it was very well done. And as I said, I think the subject matter of the film is as poignant and relevant as ever. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. Like this video. And as I said at the beginning of this video, I do this every single time. I've got my phone out right now and I'm going to be pulling up the magical Oscar wheel. It is spinning on your screen right now, and we are going to find out which movie I will be watching in the next Best Best Picture winner video. And it is slowing down now, and we are going to be watching 1989's Driving Miss Daisy, which is a movie that I have never seen before. I know Morgan Freeman is in it, but that's about the extent that I know of the movie, so I will be watching that and reviewing it in the next Best Picture winner video. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.